Our friend, the great patriot, Kash Patel. How are you, brother?
I'm great, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Kash Patel, the Biden administration is funding Iran through the front door and the back door, which means it's funding these terrorist organizations. It's arming Iran. It's using this money to build up its military. It's funding Iran's nuclear development. They're at the precipice now. They refuse to cut off the oil that they're selling to China. And, of course, they're also involved in providing drones to Russia. Now, count me skeptical, but this isn't the way a president is supposed to conduct himself, funding the enemy. Isn't this worse than Neville Chamberlain?
I wish the resuscitation of facts you just laid out was a farce, but tragically, it's absolutely true. And thank you for bringing up the nuclear deterrent component of Iran. People forget that now. When we were in the Trump administration, it was the number one thing in the national security arena we built a defense around. Iran could never get a nuclear weapon. It's why he withdrew out of the JCPOA and the Obama deal. But Biden went back into it, opened up the piggy banks, gave him $6 billion, and now we have no insight through any regulators into Iran's nuclear weapons program, putting aside the fact that they are still the number one state sponsor of terror and flush with $10 billion thanks to Joe Biden. I mean, this is literally funding the enemy that launched a world war into our number one ally, Israel's home country. And Americans are still held captive there today by Hamas, the Iranian Hamas terrorist proxy force. It is a grotesque display.
And they never talk about the American hostages, ever. Any more than they talk about the Americans they left behind in Afghanistan. Any more than they ever talk about the Americans that are dying as a result of the open border. And that Joe Biden is the biggest slaver in American history with the sex slavery that's going on. All these human rights abuses, all of our people being held hostages, our people being killed in Afghanistan and otherwise. This guy's never held to account, even by his own party or the media. It's amazing, is it not?
It's the Trump derangement syndrome effect on steroids. This country and its leadership is willing to be so overly political in their desire to, quote unquote, get Trump, that they will literally do the things intentionally that you just outlined. I mean, any one of those things for a commander-in-chief to allow on his watch would be a national security emergency. One hostage alone in captivity by terrorists is a national security emergency. Now we have hundreds. One soldier's death alone in a never-ending war because of a political decision is a national security emergency. Joe Biden killed 13 in Afghanistan, 3 in Syria, and 2 in the Red Sea, and he didn't even have the audacity and compunction to call their families. This is the type of leadership that's there, and the media is running cover for them because all they want to do is have him reelected so Donald Trump doesn't go back to the White House. That's how much they hate our country.
And they hate it so much that you have these Hitler youth running around at colleges and universities. They're not checking their student visa status. They're not seeking to deport anybody. The White House announced that they will not bring in the National Guard to quiet these campuses. We haven't heard a damn thing from Schumer or Gillibrand in New York. We haven't heard a damn thing from Hakeem Jeffries. And, of course, we haven't heard anything serious from Joe Biden, who's always playing the moral equivalency card because this Hitler youth, that's a core part of their base and their voting, isn't it?
No, you're absolutely right. And it didn't happen overnight. This degradation of society and this importation of illegal immigrants and also Hitler Youth-style folks and terrorists into our country happened because the United States under Joe Biden's leadership said, you're welcome here as long as you vote for us. We don't care if you're illegal. Don't get an ID card. We'll give you money. We'll give you housing. Come here, protest. And it was actually ironic. Some of the protesters have been interviewed in New York at these campuses. And when asked what are they what are they protesting for, they have no idea. They have not been educated on it. Literally, someone handed them a check or a wad of money and said, you just go here and do this. And Joe Biden is allowing it because he knows the only way that he can beat Donald Trump come November is by importing these folks by the tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands and allowing them to vote illegally and rig a presidential election. That's why he's not saying anything.
Our friend Kash Patel is with us. By the way, he wrote a fantastic book called Government Gangsters. You can get it at Amazon.com. Government Gangsters. He was here when it came out. It's really a fantastic book if you haven't gotten it. So, Kash Patel, this story from JNS, the International Criminal Court in The Hague, would not be considering issuing arrest warrants for the Prime Minister of Israel and his senior staff without the approval of the United States. According to a Channel 12 report, citing senior sources associated with the ICC. Can you believe, with all the mass murder genocide maniacs on the planet, that this administration, Biden and Blinken, are encouraging this phony international court to issue criminal warrants against the prime minister elected by Democratic peoples? Can you believe that?
Tragically, I can. I mean, remember, the ICC is something the U.S. has never been a signatory to and legally not binded to by anything. But now the weaponized system of justice that used to just be exploding in the United States of America, they have taken it abroad and exported it for political purposes. It's no secret that Joe Biden does not like Netanyahu, and it's no secret that Tony Blinken wants to take the State Department and put it on steroids and enter into other powers' political currency. And now they're going to use an ICC, which, of course, I 100% believe would never act to issue an arrest warrant for a political leader such as Benjamin Netanyahu without the tacit asking of Biden and Blinken. And they are looking to take out not just their enemies domestically, but across the world. But, Mark, my question to everybody that's writing this stuff and proposing this and supporting it is, where's the arrest warrant for the Hamas terrorists that invaded Israel and killed thousands of people and are holding hundreds of Americans and Israelis hostages to this day? Where are those arrest warrants?
Does Biden ever talk about the Americans held hostage? They did a video. Hamas did one of them. The guy lost half of his arm. He lost his hand. And you don't even hear a thing from Biden and Blinken about it. It's just, we have people in the government who are using the instrumentalities of government, who are using the power of government against us, aren't they? Against the American people.
Yeah. No, you're right. Look, hostages, that was one of my portfolios when I ran counterterrorism for President Trump. It's something very near and dear to me. I ran operations, policies, and President Trump, because he cared about hostage retrieval so much, we rescued 54 of them in his presidency. That's more than every president before him combined. That's how you go get hostages, when you put Americans first, our intelligence collections efforts first. But when you take your time in the Oval Office to issue edicts through the International Criminal Court to oust your political enemies, people that get stranded and forgotten are American hostages. People that get stranded and forgotten are U.S. soldiers, and they get left in the ground because Joe Biden's political disasters. And now he's going after the political opponents of our number one ally in the world, in Israel. And unless we do something about it here, this is going to continue waving over the entire world. And it's up to us in November to get it right, because unless we put this front and center, they're going to let it occur. The ICC, that's where people like Jack Smith work. So that'll tell you anything about that.
Now, what's interesting about this to me is the Biden administration is in the Supreme Court today arguing there is no such thing as immunity. Now, putting aside arguments I've made that this is the criminalization of politics, it should never have even gotten to the Supreme Court. Nobody should have been charged for anything. Now, putting that aside, do they understand that means if the court rules with them, that Joe Biden can be prosecuted for all the horrors that have occurred on the border because he's violated the Constitution and federal immigration law? Do they understand that people will and should, and let me repeat it, should look for reasons to indict Joe Biden once he leaves office? Because if that's now the coin of the realm, then so be it.
They absolutely do realize it. But here's how evil they are. They think if they win this short-term fight, which, and I completely agree with you, is totally unconstitutional, the position that their DOJ and Joe Biden has taken. If they win it now, then they think they can rig the system between now and another Biden administration to make sure that they selectively continue to operate. They don't care about the Constitution and its actual privilege. If they did, they would know a decision that came in against Trump would also be a decision that came in against Obama, Bush, and Clinton, like when Obama killed a guy named Alexander Marsawi overseas, an American citizen who was a terrorist. He had the right to kill him. It was righteous action to do so. But are we going to open him up to criminal and civil liability because he did so? A ruling by the Supreme Court against Donald Trump would do just that. So I don't think they care, and I think they will try to rig the courts if they win this election by taking out justices, adding more justices, and recreating our constitutional republic until it is no longer a version that our founding fathers had created.
You know, the political landscape is strewn with dead, brilliant people And I'm talking about Joe Biden destroying their reputations through character assassination, whether it was Bork or Clarence Thomas or scores of other judicial nominees or nominees for other positions in Republican administrations. That's all this guy knows is these mob tactics, because he's a thoroughly stupid man, but he's an egomaniac, he's a narcissist, and that is what we have in the White House. So he doesn't mind. He wants Trump in prison. He wants Netanyahu in prison. He wants him deposed. He wants the American people deposed. That's why the open border. This is a man who is unscrupulous, who's unethical, who's immoral. And look what he's doing to the country. Do you think there's going to be enough people in this country who wake up to this?
We're going to have to keep pounding the pavement until they do. When, I'm emboldened by the fact that when Donald Trump rolls out into New York City and checks out the construction workers, how much support he has at a last-minute showing. And that tells me that those folks are representative of the entire United States of America. Everyday Americans are pouring into Donald Trump's support because they realize the two-tier system of justice is railroading Trump, but it's coming for them after they're done with him. And Joe Biden is the architect of that system. And Joe Biden doesn't care about democracy. He cares about a totalitarian dictatorial regime that he can implement and that he's been working on for 55 years in Washington, D.C. I mean, this is it. This is what you get when you have someone who worked his entire life for 55 years in Washington. They become the most corrupt, egomaniacal, self-fulfilling individual in U.S. history. And along the way, they destroy our country. They kill our youth with Chinese fentanyl. They allow our border to explode, and they allow multiple world wars to happen because why? Their friends get paid in the defense industrial complex, and they know Donald Trump will end that. And I think Americans are waking up to it.
Well, you're terrific, Kash Patel. We really appreciate you here. The book is Government Gangsters. Anything else you want to tell us before you go?
No, that's it. Government Gangsters. The movie is coming out next month. It's a bestseller.
Really?
It's a roadmap for taking out the deep state.
Well, we'll have to watch that. All right, brother. Take care of yourself. God bless you.
Thank you, my friend.